And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at coalition_radio. Folks, if you have a moment and you're listening to this for the very first time or the third time, hopefully even longer, take a moment, follow us, subscribe to us, all that social media stuff. It's critical for independent media. That's how we rise above the white noise, the conventional media, the clickbait, the outrage porn, and all the silliness and dumpster fires that occupy the web. The type of program that we have on this network is community-based and driven towards conversation surrounding the big problems: economics, racism, government failure, corruption. It's not for the faint of heart. I call it third rail radio. But that's how we deliver the news to you in a time when the media just seems more concerned with getting you to click on an ad than you do in any type of substantive conversation about the issues that we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight is episode 4 of a series that, well, we're going to continue for quite a while. I call it Pawtucket-based Community United for Positive Change. That's the organization. It's the conversations, and tonight is episode 4. Joining us is Dimitri Lissakatos, Christine Bento, and, of course, Lynn Farinelli. We sort of a rotating cast, or if you will, a buffet of all things Pawtucket. We're going to focus again on tonight, if you will, in the beginning, while we still got Dimitri, who only has a little bit to join us tonight, a little bit of time. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Pawtucket politics. There was a tragic passing of a valued community member who was also recently elected to Pawtucket City Council, and whose election represented real opportunity for real change and real conversation. Tragically, she was taken from us, and we're going to ask Christine and Lynn to talk about a little bit about that tonight, because there is a special election slated for the great city of Pawtucket. And shockingly, first, I want to just say, folks, I hope you're not drinking hot liquids and or operating heavy equipment, because this could be disturbing. It could upset you. It could trigger you. But shockingly, Don Grebian, the mayor of Pawtucket, feels like his choice should be the automatic installation. He is, of course, the kingmaker of all things Pawtucket, and based on the incredible success story that he's written in seemingly the 30 or 40 years that he's been mayor of that city, I can't see why that's a problem. I mean, in the words of the immortal, what could possibly go wrong? Folks, welcome back. We've only got Dimitri here for a little bit. Like I said, he's got a meeting to go to. We've been talking for a few weeks now about a report that was issued. And the importance of that report is that it was really the summation of years of abuse. It was documented, and the summation of an extensive conversation had between members of the community, for whom policing should be driven by the way. This notion, one of the first things that has to go as we decide whether we're going to defund or absolutely eliminate the police, is the notion that this is a top-down authoritarian regime that hunts for ways to indict the citizenry, as opposed to a citizenry-driven product that focuses on the issues that they determine are important for their community. So, first of all, let's go around the room. Christine, how are you this week? And where would you like to pick up the conversation?
I'm doing great. Thank you once again for having us, Pat. Lots of good feedback with what we're doing for the last, I think this is the 4th week that we've been on Tuesday. So we're getting a lot of good feedback. People want us to keep on voicing the concerns. You know, people are actually hearing it more on this format than they are, behind the scenes, obviously, or in any other format, actually, because, the city is not really trying to cater to the community right now. Even with special elections that you did mention, our condolences going out to Mama Ama, we call her family. I spoke to her husband earlier this morning. I stopped by the store to see how he was doing. Yeah, we did suffer a loss here in Pawtucket. Ama was she's gonna do great things on the council. We're gonna miss her. But I think she'd be proud with the candidate that we as the community has chosen to represent us. Like I said, we'll get into it more later on. That's what I've been working on this week. alongside with some of the police stuff going on too. But we've been kind of working on the campaign for Anna Suarez, who will be running for Ward 5. So, and like you touched on it a little bit, the mayor has decided to run somebody, but we will definitely get into that by the end of the show.
Excellent. So where would you like to pick up in terms of the report? I know we'd focused a lot on some cases that remain open. I won't use the term cold case. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that's, quite frankly, the police like to use that. And I think, quite frankly, it's insulting to the members of the community who were personally impacted by it, and as well as the members of the community who were peripherally impacted because of the loss of leadership or the loss of a friend's family member. So we
Right.
focused on a number of open cases. In fact, let's agree to ban that word. The last time we'll use a cold case. Let's ban that word forever from our lexicon here on the coalition, because of just how inappropriate it is. So we had spoken about that, and then we refreshed ourselves last week on that, and we were starting to get into some of the individual demands. And in prior weeks, we'd gone so far as a community review board, and we were starting to get into some of the functions of the the designated committee review board. And so what are your thoughts on that, and how important that is that to your report in general?
Well, our goal was to set up a community review board, which is set up with community members, right? That will help bring light to some of the changes that need to be made with the like a police department. Well, the mayor at first kind of agreed, and then when he went to give it a little bit more thought, he decided that he would create a mayor's advisory board, which will probably be hand-picked, hand-selected. Which it was, but we can work with that. We can work with just about anything. We're the community. We've been struggling all this time. So whoever he decides to pick, our thoughts are CU4PC and other community leaders will work together with the mayor's advisory board, right? So they can go advise him as to what the community issues are now, since he no longer wants to listen himself. He wants to set up a board to come do it for him. So we'll work with them to see how we can correct some of the problems in the city. Hopefully, he has selected some people that care and are willing to listen, right? I know some of them that are on there. Actually, two of them are members of the CU4PC. So I trust that they will definitely push some of the issues that we have already put forth. Um, I'm never really worried about when the mayor decides to handpick, whether it's for an election, whether it's for a board. I'm never worried about that because I don't believe there's too many people in the city that knows it like I do, or the politics of it. So um, basically, they're supposed to be meeting soon, I guess, and we'll work with them. I mean, it's an advisory board made up of quite a few, city employees, I guess, which is going to make it a little bit tricky, but we'll work with them, like I said, because we're a very diverse group. And I work with difficult people in difficult positions before. I have no problem with that. So if he set that up so that way it can replace the community review board, that's where I think he's a little bit confused, because our goal is still to have a community review board made up by community members. So he can have his advisory board. He can set it up however he wants. He can handpick whoever he wants. Our goal is still to have a community review board. We're going to work with the mayor's advisory board to create the community review board. That's our goal. We will get it with or without the mayor's help. I think this is where he gets a little bit confused, right, Pat? Because some of us know that the community can take it to the city council and get it put on the table and vote it in, and it can make it happen so many other ways that the mayor really doesn't have to work with them, because at the end of the day, the community will speak very loudly on this one. We need it. There's too many issues. Not one advisory board to the mayor is going to be able to handle even half of what's come up. The retaliation's a big issue because the more we talk and the more we come on the Pat Ford show, the more of a target we become. But as you can see, at least the three you have on the panel here, we are. I mean, of course, we're concerned a little bit. I guess you know what I mean. I can't speak for Lynn and Dimitri, but I've gotten used to it. You know what I mean. I'm not going to give up a fight because I've came this far. You know what I mean. So at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that the mayor got his way. He got his advisory board, but it doesn't cancel out the community review board. We're still going to put a community review board together to work with his advisory board. So now we're going to have one big happy family trying to help him figure out what to do with his police department and his whole administration, I guess.
Ooh. Um, I think we all know intuitively why he keeps sort of changing the direction, why he keeps presenting new roadblocks, why he keeps trying to just never seem to finish anything. But from your perspective, what and you list it, and I'm at page 9, I believe, that of what the community review board will do. But what are the goals if we go back to the report itself? And what are the goals in the run up to the creation of the review board? If I go to, and I'm scrolling through your report itself right now. First and foremost, you want protection for whistleblowers,
Yes.
particularly those who made a complaint or had issued a formal restraining order against a police officer. How much has this been a problem? The absence of that.
It's been a huge problem. It's been a huge problem because a lot of people have not put in complaints because out of fear of being retaliated against.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just saw a man who was tormented by the Pawtucket police. He's now suing them for, I think, what was it, Lynn, $3.5 million now?
It's 3.1 million. Pat, I would love for this man to come on your show and explain exactly what happened to him. His name is Carlton Vos. And if you actually got into the story, I actually met him, Dimitri and I met him. And what a sad story that he had. And his mother was actually taken from him because of the Pawtucket Police Department. He did not get to spend the last few years with his mom who had dementia. I actually worked with her at Memorial Hospital, and it just a very sad story. He ended up going to jail because of the Pawtucket Police Department. He went to jail for 2 years. He's out. He was an attorney. He has been disbarred, and he's now suing the city for $3.1 million. And it is a case that you would, when you read it, you don't get the full picture of exactly what this poor man went through. But it's a very interesting story. If you could ever reach out to him and get him on your show, I'm sure that eyes would be wide open to what actually happens in the city with retaliation and harassment and everything with these Pawtucket police officers.
Absolutely. Well, it's an open door, so let's work offline to make that happen. Absolutely.
Well, I'll be glad to invite him to come on any Tuesday when we're on. That's fine, because this follows along the lines of what CU4PC is trying to fight for.
Got a very interesting story.
Is to raise awareness on people who are afraid of retaliation. And there's only quite a few of us out here that's willing to speak on the retaliation. For those that have made it that far that can still speak about it.
Right. So in your opinion, and I'll just ask all three of you, the atmosphere that's in place right now is a significant roadblock to people feeling safe enough to report incidents and to report police misconduct?
I think a lot of the younger people are afraid of retaliation. A lot of the, I've been introduced to a few young kids that have had incidents with the Pawtucket police, and I've heard their stories. And I I want them to go file a complaint, but then I worry at the same time that these kids who are constantly in the mix in the city, I worry that they may face retaliation. So sometimes I don't I don't push the issue or I don't advise it because I feel that they may pay a price for it.
Wow. So, on one hand, is there, and Dimitri, I'll ask you, is there a real possibility that despite all the reports that you collected as part of the Rhode Island Accountability Project, that police misconduct might be significantly underreported?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid to report the incidents because they feel that if they do, that retaliation is imminent. That some of these people really believe that, and I think in some cases it's definitely a real issue, a real threat.
To any one of you, how much resources are dedicated by the Pawtucket Police Department to internal affairs?
One of you want to take that question?
I don't know. I mean, it's just another department. I don't know.
Well, in terms of saying how many
goes to that department.
No, but it's just saying generally in terms of how many officers.
I think there's 2 in that division. Am I correct?
Yeah, there was
I think
2.
you are. I think
I'm not sure which is on it now.
the last batch of internal affairs investigations that we did receive only had 2 officers that were investigating them.
All right. So one of the things
But
that
you gotta understand one thing though that happens with IA, right? With the internal affairs office, right? Sometimes the ones they put in charge of that office are involved in some of these issues. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll say that sometimes it's the person in charge of investigating it that is in cahoots with the retaliation. So some of the requests that we make for APRA or requests that we make to prove our cases go missing because the officer in IA is also involved with the retaliation. So it's all one big messy project that they create for themselves. And then we look crazy because the stories can't make sense, right? This is the police, everybody trusts them. Especially the IA office is created to take reports against community members filing reports against police brutality or police misconduct. But when you have someone in charge of that office who must cover it up and must help the officer to trouble, or sometimes they're part of the retaliation, right? How do you even get around that? If IA is part of the corruption, it's kind of tricky.
right. To wit,
Basically they investigate themselves and find that they're doing a bang up job. But besides that, I think that that's why Dimitri and I originally had started saying that maybe we needed someone like Dimitri or myself, or it doesn't even have to be the 2 of us, but actually going through the IA investigations as they're investigating, right, to make sure that they're done to the quality that the citizens would want them to be done.
My biggest problem with IA is we don't know. There's no way to watch the watcher. And when I say this, I say this because I think I talked a little bit about this last week. If we ask for a batch of reports, we're at the mercy of the Pawtucket Police Department to give us the reports that are actually in their system. And we have found that, and this is, I can, verify this through emails and some of the public records requests we've done, that we have requested batches of reports where we were missing reports. And the only way we knew we were missing reports is because we had been notified by people that their reports weren't in the batch of files that we had. And we had to go back to Pawtucket and tell them that we were missing reports. And then they would always ask, like, what report are you missing? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to tell you right now that I know there was a report filed that's not in this batch that fits this time frame. And then they would, mysteriously find their report. And then I'd say, well, you're still missing another one. And then they'd go back again. So you can't have any faith in the integrity of the system when stuff like this happens. So you almost need a third party to retrieve these reports. I personally don't trust what I'm asking for. Unfortunately, I have to say that. It's a fact that I don't have any faith in that department to give me the records I'm requesting, because nobody else, there's no recourse to them not giving me the reports. If there's nobody else watching, they are the ultimate authority. And you can go to the AG, but he can't go into their files either. He only depends on what they give him.
Right.
There's no investigative body that polices the way they do business or the way they respond to our requests.
And folks know that I'm a libertarian. I'm not a big believer in laws, but is there no penalty for them withholding? I mean, shouldn't all of this by law, an internal affairs report, be sent to the Attorney General? I mean,
there's no penalty, no.
But should there be?
There's no penalty for them. Basically they say they made a mistake. Oh, I missed it, and this and that. And if you go to the Attorney General and complain, the Attorney General can only, he can only issue a penalty for a willful violation. He would have to prove it was willful. That's almost impossible. He has that, he has that ability, but without somebody admitting that they purposely withheld a report, he can't prove it, so he's not going to issue a violation.
Right. No, I understand. Part of your report, you actually request a dedicated space and a level of security for the submission of these reports. Maybe, Dimitri, if you could explain that a little bit.
Say that again, Pat.
In your report, you actually request a dedicated space and a dedicated methodology for reporting, for actually turning in internal affairs. In other words, a safe space to do so and a dedicated person to do it with. Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, the ideal situation would be to have a private group that would be able to access these reports and look at them, whether it be in private, just to verify that, what is being given to the public is what the Pawtucket Police Department or any other police department actually has. Yeah. Ideal. I'm going to refer back to the group that Providence had. Providence had a community review board. And I remember, I went to one of their meetings, and they were talking about retrieving internal affairs reports, and they were saying, we have to go to the police department and request the reports, and then they'll give them to us. And I had to chime in and tell them, how do you know you're getting what you're requesting? And then they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I've been doing this for a few years, and I can tell you that I've requested reports from numerous police departments that I knew existed because somebody had come to me and said that, I filed a report against such and such at this date and time. So I would ask for a batch of files in that time frame, and that report would be missing. And so I told the Providence review board, I said, how do you know you're getting everything you're told that you're requesting? And they just looked at me and said, well, we don't. I said, well, that's why you need to have an independent party accessing these files, because, you can't have faith in the system unless there's another level of scrutiny here.
Right. And I'm assuming that would be for the more difficult cases. In your report, you specify police brutality and racial harassment, which is, that's the two extremes, if you will. And I understand why you're asking for this, and it's a completely legitimate ask, particularly in police departments where routinely these issues are avoided. And, you had situations in the state where police departments have been taken over completely by, if you will, by the state police or they've had people placed in charge from outside, from the state police, in charge of a police department. That obviously happened in Cranston just a few short years ago. And I'm not trying to be cynical here, but would you trust the state police to, in all cases in Rhode Island where there's a complaint of actual police physical brutality and, if you will, hate crimes against individuals by police, is that what you're looking for? And would you trust the state police to do that?
In
I
Pawtucket, I
think it would
wouldn't.
be a positive step.
Christine,
Well,
why don't you go first?
I think that I think I'm looking at it more of a personal way, because there's been times where we've gone to the state police about some of the stuff that Pawtucket is doing. They'll say they can't do anything unless the AG's office tells them, right? Which is a lie. But we'll just leave that alone, because if that's what they say, everybody has to believe the police, right? Especially the state police. Then when you go along with that and you contact the AG's office, and the AG's office tells them, yes, it's okay to go and investigate this, right? You still come back to the state police and they're told, like, yeah, the AG's office said that we can go investigate, but guess what? The circuit's already closed it out, so I guess we're all set. That's happened. So I guess I would trust it if they could actually. I trust action, Pat. I don't trust talk. And too many of them talk, and too many of them are not held accountable for what their jobs are. The state police has to look out for a citizen complaining against a local department, but they won't do it, especially in Pawtucket. They will not get involved. I'm not sure what the problem is here in Pawtucket. I keep saying that because you get away with so much. They're out of control, and nobody seems to be able to do anything about it. It's a little bit scary, but now I'm starting to find it comical.
Dimitri, what are your thoughts? And then Lynn, what do you think?
I agree with Christine. We've gone to the state police and on numerous incidents, some that were very well documented, and the state police just refused to do anything about it. And they basically referred us back to Pawtucket, and I was like, well, I mean, we know how they investigate themselves. I mean, this is why we came to you. And like I said earlier, I would welcome at the very least another level of scrutiny. I don't know. My suggestion would be internal affairs reports. Nominated, they should all go to a. Not now. We can go to the Attorney General again, but maybe there should be a state database of internal affairs reports where every city and town is forced or required to upload them to a state database, and then that state agency would be the one to release them. I don't know. I'm just trying to find a way to take the power away from the people that are directly involved with these reports, rather than having them be the ones who are releasing them, so that there'd be a greater chance that you're going to get what you're asking for. Because I really do believe that some of these reports are very sensitive, and some of the people involved in these reports will do what they can to keep them buried. And we're seeing this especially with, and we were just talking earlier, citizen-generated reports. What I think is even more disturbed, internally generated reports. These are reports where there may be, officer against officer, officer against, someone in the mayor's office, or a politician, or some of those reports are very telling about what goes on behind the scenes politically in these cities and towns. And hopefully we'll see some from Narragansett pretty soon. I'm waiting on a batch right now that we just, the Attorney General ruled in our favor. We'll see what happens.
Interesting. you know, you talk about the different policies and the fact that others have this. You talk about the Law Enforcement Officer's Bill of Rights, body cameras. Lynn, I haven't heard from you in a minute or two. What are your thoughts about body cameras?
I think that nowadays we need them. We need them for everyday stops. I think that we need them for everything. And, you know, not everybody pulls out a camera when something's going on, and we need to see all interaction. I definitely think that the city of Pawtucket, of all the cities, need them. They need them on at all times.
Dimitri, Christine, your thoughts?
I will chime in here. I think body cameras are great. Okay. But I've got my own personal experience with cameras and police and the city solicitor tampering with camera. I mean, you know, I know of an issue that happened inside the Pawtucket Police Department where an officer kind of was intimidating a citizen. It was caught on the police camera in the hallway. And for some strange reason, they hired a professional editor to come in and blur the police officer's face out. That was done by the city solicitor. So they can't even get a camera in the building correct without tampering with it so that you can't tell what the officer was doing. Right. So first the city solicitor tampers with it one way, and then the AG's office gets a, you know, the whole APA request for it and demands that he releases it, you know, unredacted. And then when he does that, he messes it with it another way. He shortens it so that way you can't tell what. So I'm all for cameras, but if the city solicitor is going to tamper with evidence and then destroy evidence or claim it was destroyed, they're going to do the same thing with body cam. Pawtucket's always going to find a creative way to save their officers.
Interesting. Lynn, your thoughts?
Can I chime in for a quick sec?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the idea of body cameras. I think there needs to be a set of rules to the to the way they release the information. I think the ACLU had also, I think when maybe a year or two ago, they had kind of released a report on you know, basically a set of rules for being able to access that body cam information, because the way it is now, the police can choose to release what they want to release. So whenever there's an incident that's favorable to them, that body camera footage seems to be released very quickly. Whenever there's an incident that is unfavorable to them, or the body camera footage is unfavorable to them, and then they hold that, like, you know, for dear life. So there needs to be a set of rules that make it easy for the public to access the information, regardless of whether, you know, it was favorable to the police or not, whatever incident it is. That way, you know, you can have faith in the idea that the body camera footage will be released, you know, fairly.
There also needs to be consequences if the rules are not followed, because the problem is, even if they have rules in Pawtucket, they don't get followed, but then there's no consequence if they don't follow it. So why follow the rules if there's no consequence for not following it? I mean, it's pretty simple.
No,
I also think
go ahead.
I think to move this city forward, I think that definitely to move this city forward, we need two people to resign. And the first one is the chief of police, and the second one is Frank Milos.
Elaborate on that, please, Lynn.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we found out that Tina was involved in the retaliation of Christine and myself, to the point of, and you mentioned the state police. The state police have told Christine and I that we can't override the Pawtucket police because we don't feel safe, and we can call them when we have an issue. So that right there is pretty telling that, you know, they know what's going on here in the city of Pawtucket. And the other thing is Frank Milos definitely is in it for the Pawtucket Police Department and will cover up anything and everything he can to the point of destroying evidence. So those two people right there are not working for the community, and they need to go. Like, they should have been gone yesterday.
Right. Powerful stuff. I'd love to cover one more area because I know
I'm a little cynical in this respect. Like
Go ahead,
you,
buddy.
Pat, I'm a libertarian, and I think even if those two were gone, the fact is, the people that would replace them would still be in it to protect themselves and the organization. And that's just the way it is. That's the way the system is set up. It's set up to protect itself. You know, you can put a different costume in the front of the room, and you're still going to get the same results. Unfortunately, that's how government works. It's not set up to represent the people. It's set up to protect itself from lawsuits and the people.
You know, going along with what Dimitri just mentioned, I think it's right too. Like, we were having some problems with the FOP president. He's one of the main persons responsible for the retaliation. James Bano. He's now in East Providence. Yes, he left, but does the retaliation go away because James left? No, it's still there in a different form. You know, a different superior will take over. And James Bano likes to retaliate on behalf of other officers. Not necessarily something has to happen that, you know, hurts his feelings or that he was a target of. He was the FOP president. So mess with one of his officers, and then if his officers can't get away with retaliation, James Bano steps in and does. So
Wow.
luckily for the city of Pawtucket, James Bano left Pawtucket and is now in East Providence. So I like to say the garbage took itself out. That's great. However, we're still left with his team, whoever he refers to. He has a team. He was, you know, taking one for the team while he was here. We still, if we can be glad that the garbage took itself out and took himself to East Providence. Right? Go be East Providence's problem. But now we're still left with his team. And the chief is part of his team, according to him and others, according to documentation. If the chief is part of his team, what are we left with? We're still left with a problem. Only one team member left. So we still got a team of people that are still working to retaliate. Probably even more that they've lost their FOP president, right? I mean, that's just a common way of looking at it.
Is East Providence aware of what they've inherited?
Not yet.
They're not. They're about to find out.
So is this one of those cases
Good luck to them.
where Dimitri and I, you know, just as an aside, I think we share our perspective on this. When Gina was leaving, you know, there was this sort of natural internal conflict. One part of us regretted that Gina would soon be impacting the rest of the country as she had on Rhode Island. The other part of it was, all right, she's great. She'll do a fine job for you. Go ahead. You know, please. You know where I'm going with that, right, Dimitri?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm laughing and crying at the same time. I want to take. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
We
Lynn,
were glad
please.
to see James. We were glad to see James Bano leave.
There's an old saying, right, in politics. Don't let the door be hitting you on the Irish on the way out. It's an old Irish saying, but it is in fact a universal. So I think we can take that to the bank. We don't have
shuffling the actors around.
Right.
They shuffle the actors around, and you get a different actor, but you know the same show still playing.
Right. I do want to spend time, you know, so we don't run out of time tonight, on the politics of Pawtucket. We mentioned at the onset of the show that there is, in fact, through tragedy, an opening in the Pawtucket City Council. There is a special election coming up. Christine, you had started to elaborate on that, but if you could tell us just a little bit about the candidate and where people could find out about her and support the campaign, and maybe just give her a little, a little bit of a background on her and her experience.
Well, her name is Anna Suarez, Soares. I actually went to high school with her. A very smart young lady, very compassionate, caring, and very balanced. Like not too rational, like me. But she gets the job done. Everything she's done has been like beyond anybody's expectation. I worked with her on several projects in the past. She's worked with many, many, many community leaders. A lot of them feel the same way about her. We respect her work. She's been around so long, years, decades. Everybody knows who she is. The community knows who she is. So when we were trying to find somebody, I actually didn't even know she lives in the ward. I was never been more excited to find out that she was willing to step up to the plate because I believe that she could definitely help make the changes that we need for that ward specifically, because that ward is actually the most diverse ward in the city. It's got a lot of minorities in it, a lot of Caribbeans in it, Spanish. I mean, a lot of everything. It's just one big happy mix there. So she has been catering to a lot of like children programming, and she worked with at Hope High School with the after school program. I can't even go down a list. Maybe one day we can have her on and she can come and speak for herself. But we were all so excited. The community, the voters, the taxpayers, so excited when she decided she would run. So then we find out that the mayor and John Barros was a state representative had picked the candidate for themselves. We know how that goes. The city picks somebody, and more than likely they're going to get endorsed, and they're going to have the Democratic support or whatever. However that goes, Pawtucket politics is very tricky and sneaky anyway. So I'm not intimidated by that. I never really am. Um, it's a special election, so it is more. Obviously, it's just the two of them. I think we have one more candidate though. I'm hearing there might be an independent candidate,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't. That hasn't been made public. I don't think, because I don't know what the name is. So while we're preparing with Anna, and I'm interviewing her and I'm asking all the right questions, and I did ask if anybody knows of this other candidate, bring him to me so we can interview him. I have the page called You're Really from Pawtucket. I know there's 3 pages that says you're from Pawtucket. Mine is the one with the word really in it. You're really from Pawtucket. Last time that we had the elections, we did something different, and I got so much good feedback from it. I decided to do it again. I was interviewing candidates. Because of the COVID, people couldn't go door to door. It was kind of tricky for them to be introduced to some of the candidates. I interviewed them and put it on the page. And this is how a lot of the voters got to know the candidates and decided who to vote on. It worked very well. So I interviewed her. She's on the You're Really from Pawtucket page. You go on there, you can find out all about her. She's a beekeeper. I did not know that we had a garden in Gallagher Court until I interviewed her there. There's there's a greenhouse, there's plants, there's all kinds of stuff being grown there that people don't even know about. And she was managing that, and I guess you can rent the space so that you can grow vegetables or fruits or even beekeep. Um, we also have an organization right now that when they saw her video about what she does at Gallagher Court, the organization also has seeds for anybody who wants to plant vegetables. You can inbox me, come to my page and inbox me, and I can get you linked up with them too. So as we're running, Anna, we're hearing behind the scenes that the mayor has already made his election, and that the Democratic committee is going to endorse the guy, which is expected. This is how it goes. What I was shocked to find out is that the candidate is a friend of John Barros, State Representative John Barros, John Philippe. And I was shocked to find out that Jean Philippe Barros was also one of the people on the committee that voted to endorse the candidate. Now, if that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. But like I said, we can work with that. You know, Melissa DeRosa won the number one seat for council at large with no endorsement at all.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. You know, the mayor has made himself so irrelevant. He thinks he's important. He thinks he's got the power to just, snap his fingers and it's got to be that person because he says so. Pawtucket is not the same anymore. And I'm a different kind of beast. We have community leaders that care about the community. We have voters now that know what they want. He cannot continue to operate that anymore. Times are changing. Tables are being turned, Don Grevian. So the game continues. He's going to continue to play his cards the same way. Problem is, you played your card the same way so many times that some of us have memorized it. Now we're going to take your cards away and we'll play them against you. How about that? I mean, people don't like my approach sometimes, but that's the only way that I know how to put it. I'm no longer trying to be respectful with this game anymore. If the community knows a candidate and has no idea who his candidate is, right? How are you going to force us and tell us who our leader is going to be? How are you going to force that district and point out who the leader is going to be because that's who you want it to be? Because you want a yes, yes man.
Right.
And shame on the council, shame on the state representative who wants somebody that doesn't want what the community wants. John Barros has gotten away with it for so long. He does nothing for the community. What does he do? He helps out the small businesses, a couple of them in the community, so that they can plug him to the community. What does he do with yard signs? He doesn't ask if he can put them on your property. He plays the Cape Verdean part for that moment. And he goes in and makes Cape Verdean homeowners think they have to have these signs on their yards. I've gone to so many Cape Verdean homes that they tell me that he put it there. He didn't ask, but I can't move it, right? They don't understand that they don't have to have the yard sign there. So is he going to do it? This candidate most likely plop signs wherever he wants them to be without asking, and all that. It's karma. We leave it to karma. We're gonna run the clean run for Anna because at the end of the day, the community knows what they want. The community knows what they need. She seems to know what they want and need, hands down. I don't know who this guy is, and if I've been around for so long and I don't know who he is, I mean, I doubt many other people know.
Right. So in other words, they just want to drop someone down on you, and you should be just grateful that they've taken the time from their busy days to consolidate even more power, despite the message that the previous election should have sent them loud and clear. That's what I find astonishing as sort of the outsider in this group that is listening to a lot of these things for the very first time. It's clearly the most important part is the pain and the agony, both physical and mental, that they've inflicted on so many members of your community. But at the same time, the arrogance that somehow this is acceptable and that it should continue unabated. Arrogance is family radio. It's the only word I can come up with.
I'm going to go so far as to say, right, I received word today that the mayor and somebody else in the city hall is making calls demanding that they try to get Anasaurus to back out of the race. Now, I'm not happy about that because once again, you've heard me say this before, Pat, many people have heard me say this. It's like, it's like how I feel when I walk into a council meeting to do public input, right? Hey, go sit down somewhere and be quiet. We don't want to hear from you. You know what I mean? Like it's once again that feeling of tell that girl to go sit down too, right? Like, well, how are you? Just do it. Run your guy. What are you afraid of? What are you intimidated about? Yeah, I'm successful at times when I support somebody. But let it go. Let the community choose it. I'm not trying to force anybody on anybody. So, Donnie can just leave it alone. There's no need to send messages telling people to back down. If you don't like how the run is going to go, you just put your boy on his pony and tell him to ride backwards. We're not backing down because we know what the community needs are. And at the end of the day, they're going to vote who they want. It's not up to Donnie to start sending messages and gather people around and rally people and who can get this girl to back down. That's so that's so immature.
Right.
If you're so powerful, take the run. Let's see what happens.
There you go. What can you share with us? I know that the campaign is very new. I'm sure some of this might be in development. Has Miss Suarez, has she set up any social media yet, or a website, or is that still sort of in production?
She has. It's AnnaShaws.com. There's been a website set up. We're kind of still working on it. She just got her yard signs today. Thank you to attorney Susan Pires, who donated those. We got the first few yard signs. They will be going up as quick as we got them. She's working on. She's already door knocking. She's already gotten her. So just picked up her papers today, actually, to get signatures. So
Right.
they've gotten till I think the eighth to get the signatures in. You only need 50, so that shouldn't be too hard. And then it's all about knocking on some doors now that COVID is a little bit lightened up a little bit. She'll be out there knocking on some doors, and we're already rocking and rolling. We're way ahead of the game. Let's just say.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to having the opportunity to speak to her on camera and to get a sense of her attitudes on a whole bunch of issues. Obviously, the policing is a critical part of it, but also things like economic development, the soccer stadium, and all of that. There's a lot of material to cover that we'll continue to focus on here. First of all, as always, I want to thank you all for joining us. We're going to pick this up again next Tuesday here on the Coalition. I'm grateful for your continued contribution and your willingness to discuss some pretty inconvenient, some pretty uncomfortable, and actually some pretty tragic truths about what's happening in and around your city and your neighborhoods, because they are your city and they are your neighborhoods. And folks need to remember that the elected, self-elected or self-appointed need not apply anymore in the city of Pawtucket. The cost of their quote-unquote management, their governance, has been financial ruin and a destruction of a significant portion of the economic base of Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and folks in the community have to suffer. The solution, of course, as I always say, is not gentrification, not financial gain for the few, the outsiders, at the expense of people who've been part of the community, in some cases for generations, who live there. Improvements both in the community capital, the community way of life should benefit the people who have already invested in the community by being members of the community. And I think, next week we're going to continue to discuss the CU4PC report. We'll talk a little bit about Ms. Suarez's election. We'll monitor that very closely. And let's also have a conversation a little bit about economic development in the town as the quote-unquote mayor of the town continues failed, pathetic attempts at, if you're a football fan, what you call a Hail Mary pass, or if you're a fan of vampire movies, which is probably more appropriate to his regime. Quite frankly, the silver bullet he seeks, and quite frankly, the literally just suck the lifeblood out of the community we know as Pawtucket. So thank you all for joining us, and let's keep this conversation going.
We can't thank you enough week after week, because you know what? So a lot of changes are coming, even the ones that have been made. Okay. The community, the mayor's advisory board, I'd say is thanks to the continued work of Rhode Island Accountability, the whole team of CU4PC, and along with you, Pat. You've always offered support, and anything that some of us community leaders are doing that gets ignored by the city. And I want everyone to recognize, and I really want to leave this with everyone, because I've been saying it all week to people. Yes, there are some changes happening in Pawtucket City Hall. People are being appointed, and the mayor's advisory board was created, right? It wasn't created because the mayor decided to wake up one day and be a good guy and do what he's supposed to do. Created it because his agenda was to shut people up. How can we shut people up? His agenda is all wrong. if you would have just worked with us instead of working against us, a lot of these things would have got done. What people need to realize is that because we continue to talk about it, he's doing things to prove that he's doing something.
Right.
So we are making a difference, whether people realize it or not. It looks like we're being ignored, but I'm going to say it again. They are listening and they're following our direction, whether they realize it or not. So, yeah, there's still some things that needs to be corrected. There's still more work to be done. But is this how he really wants to have it done? You have to be exposed to the highest of levels before you actually get things done. Why is he making it so hard on himself? Is beyond.
Well, that's usually how it goes right before the fall. Well, again, thank you all. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network at coalitionradionetwork.com. Folks, if you can take a moment and like us and follow us and subscribe to us and all the madness that comes with social media, we'd be grateful. We're going to reissue this show tomorrow on YouTube and share that around the community. But if you like us at facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, and maybe follow us on Twitter if you are on Twitter at Coalition_radio. It helps us get our message out loud and clear above the white noise that conventional media displays, above their outrage porn, their cliches, their clickbait, and all the nonsense. We've got exigent challenges facing the city of Rhode Island, the state of Rhode Island, the city of Pawtucket, the city of Providence, the village of Central Falls, and a number of the communities, and yet we're treated to endless stories about steer on the loose or whatever nonsense is occurring that week. We need to stop it. Let's fix some important issues so that all of us can prosper, to be safe and to be free. Folks, have a wonderful night. We'll be back on the air tomorrow, 7 o'clock, Ramp. Real access motivates progress. Stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow.